Hey, are you a weeb and or a furry? Well, Final Fantasy might be the game for you. Final Fantasy is a very story-driven MMO brought to you by people who create those kinds of games, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts. That's the kind of games that Square Enix likes to make. And it comes through quite well in Final Fantasy, I'd say. Where if you compare it to other games like New World or World of Warcraft, then you can see immediately how much more important the story was to the developers Final Fantasy than it is to games like I mentioned before. And as far as the early leveling goes, I'm like level 20 or something close to that. Um, as far as the early leveling goes, I think the story is great. I mean, going into it, I had a lot of people telling me that, oh, the beginning is really sluggish and boring and it takes a while, and then after A Realm Reborn, it gets really awesome. I thought even A Realm Reborn so far has been really good. It's been really fun, and I think that the story is really, really good. I haven't seen like the later stages of the story, and I've only done a few dungeons, but as far as like the early game leveling and questing goes, I think it's really, really good, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. Um, there are a few problems with the game, like buying the game is a fucking hassle, which is kind of weird for a company to do. Why would you make buying the game the hardest part of the entire experience? Like if I'm a player and I want to try out your game and then I sign in and I see like I have to do all this extra stuff, like I have to create a Square Enix account, and then I have to like get these codes and put them into like your special website that you have for Final Fantasy, and then it gets kind of confusing. And I know that Asmongold talked about it. I know that other like YouTubers have talked about it, and I'm sure that you've lost quite a few players just off of your purchasing alone. Why do I have to put in a generated code like myself? I can't remember the last time I've had to put in a generated code other than if you buy a game off of a website, and then you have to put that code into Steam. Even if you buy the game off of your website, you still have to put the code in. It's annoying. Don't do that. But other than that, I haven't seen any major problems with the game. The combat feels pretty good and responsive so far. Again, I'm not that high of a level, so it's hard for me to say if it changes up at higher levels. I know that Kira's talked about there kind of being this weird delay. I haven't noticed that, but it could start to come in at higher levels. And the GCD, a lot of people do complain about. I think it's fine, at least for now. Like, I barely even notice it, honestly. And then even later on, I've heard people talk about how that is kind of irrelevant because you have a bunch of filler abilities that are off the GCD that you still need to use. So hopefully it doesn't become super monotonous, but right now I don't think it's that big of a problem. Um, and so the combat as far as like going into PvE and stuff like that goes is really, really good. I think the I think it's akin to World of Warcraft. It's like this tabbing. It feels good to do abilities. I haven't really had any instances where it felt not like WoW, I guess, in a sense. Um, it's kind of that older style. I mean, now we have like New World coming through with their like action kind of combat style, which is it's interesting. And I don't know which I would prefer, but they both have their place, and I think that Final Fantasy does this tab targeting just fine. Um, as far as I know, that I haven't seen any PvP in the game at all. I know that there is some, and I know it's light, but I haven't been able to experience that. I can't even like duel like my friends in the game. I wish that was an option. I wish that if you went up to somebody, you could duel them. I don't know if Square Enix is worried about like maybe some kind of griefing or like just toxicity behind that. Not really sure why you can't do that. It'd be kind of fun if we could do that. Um, and I think the dungeons that I recently got to try were kind of interesting. The low level dungeons are really only one boss. There was one that I did that you went through a little like cave and then you still fought one boss. But as I understand, the bosses later on do, or the dungeons later on do become longer with more bosses, and um I hope that they do, because just having one boss is kind of boring. But again, I guess it's a different kind of style, where in WoW you have these kind of like long dungeons where there's multiple, usually like 4 bosses. I guess in Final Fantasy they just want there to be one. I mean, it's a lot faster, and it does create more of like a casual kind of atmosphere. So if that's what they're going for, then great. I do think that Final Fantasy, all in all, is a pretty casual experience. So far, at least, it's super relaxed. I know that there's like ultimate raids or whatever they're called later on, but right now the leveling is super super chill. It's not like WoW where you are in this like kind of grind set where you need to just get it done really really fast, and it's not like New World where you're kind of off in your own sandbox doing your own thing. It's a very structured theme park MMO. I don't really have a problem with that. I think that, theme park and sandbox MMOs, they both fill their purpose. They're both good. You can try out both kinds of MMOs, see which one you like more. Maybe you're like me and you like both, and you kind of want to split your time between multiple. Either way, I think as far as a theme park MMO goes, I think it's really good. Final Fantasy really taps into that idea of like character identity. Because you don't have to make other characters. You can do everything you want from your one character. Your one character can be every kind of profession, every kind of class in the game. They call them jobs. Either way, they can do everything in the game. You don't have to like have like 17 ults like you do in WoW to like get everything done. There's a lot less, it feels like, adversarial things against each like player. Like in WoW, you have like the quest kind of fighting against you, and then you have the enemy faction fighting against you, and then you have the devs fighting against you. But in Final Fantasy, it makes it feel like everyone's kind of doing everything together, and your only enemies are like the bad guys in the world. And I think that feels really good. I don't know if I prefer it to like the kind of faction-based warfare. I understand a lot of people don't like factions because then it kind of like limits you from half the game already. I do understand that argument. And again, I think it is valuable being able to do everything from one character, whereas if there were factions, you might have to do like multiple accounts or multiple characters to get all of the everything about the game, to get all the lore, to get all the items, to learn everything you can and experience the game wholly. So I do understand those arguments, but it feels kind of it feels like kid gloves, if that makes sense, where they're kind of just like, hey, come chill, relax, have fun, just go do your thing. We'll let you do whatever. You don't have to worry about like this super ultimate spend 15 hours a day playing the game, otherwise you fall behind, which I think is good. If later on the raids are really really hard, like you can make them really hard and stuff like that, then I think the game is a 10 out of 10. I think that the only thing that the game is really missing right now for me is a really good challenge. It could be that I'm just not at a high enough level yet to have faced anything substantial, but as far as my experience so far goes, I think that the only thing really missing is that kind of challenge. So I mean, that's pretty much it. The game is really easy to get into, assuming that you're able to like download the game. Once you get past that, the game's pretty simple. They're having a lot of server problems right now, so I'd say respect what the devs say. They don't want people making characters during like high peak hours, and they don't want people staying signed in if they're going to be AFK for periods of time. So if you're going to be AFK, please sign out. If you're going to create a character, make a character on a low pop server, or wait until it's not a peak time. And that's another thing, actually, is that the devs in this game seem to care a lot about their community and the feedback that they get from the community, at least more so than other games that I've played in the past, namely WoW, where it feels like you're always at war with the developers and designers of the game, where the player base says, hey, we don't like this, and then the devs say, yeah, but trust us, you don't want it, and then it turns out that we did want it, and then they eventually cave, and then we get it, and then it's this back and forth. I mean, also, I guess New World feels like that in a way. I saw Sir Medieval's, he talked about his interview that he did with the developers, and they seemed very receptive to feedback. So I'm hoping that this is a new trend within games where developers are very, very responsive to the community and what the community wants. And I think if that's the case and they're kind of conscious of that, then we could create a really good kind of atmosphere. It's kind of the same thing that happened with old school RuneScape, where the devs kind of clashed with the players for a while, and then eventually they split their team into two and then created old school RuneScape. And from there, the players have an absolute, the most input from any game, as far as I know, into how the game progresses. And I think the player base has, mostly loved that. So hopefully this back and forth with the developers really creates a very cohesive kind of experience for everyone. It's not hard on the devs to kind of guess what the players want, and it's not hard on the players who think that the devs don't listen to them. I hope that we can get this really mingled relationship, and it feels like that is true for it feels like that is true for Final Fantasy. It feels like the developers really care, especially Yoshi P. I've seen some of his interviews, and he seems to care a lot about what the players think and about their opinions, and he's willing to take a lot of responsibility for anything that goes wrong, even if it seems outside of his control. Like recently they have like this huge influx of players, so people are waiting in queues to sign in, and the queues are only like, the queues I've seen have been like 30 people. I mean, if you play other games, like you've seen queues of like 500 plus people, and he's still apologizing for not having enough servers, when in reality, like, you can't even get enough servers because there's this huge like chip shortage throughout the world, so they can't even build servers fast enough. So it's not even like something that he could actually solve, really, and yet he's still taking responsibility for it. And I think that is a really promising mindset going into a game like this. I hope that the game continues to prosper. I know that a lot of people say that each expansion kind of makes it better and better and better and better. I'm hoping that's true. Like I said, I'm still in A Realm Reborn. We'll see how it goes from here. I'll make other videos talking about it as well with my experiences. And I think, yeah, like at the beginning, if you're a weeb or a furry, you're gonna love this game. Also, if you love stories, if you love story-driven games, you're gonna love this game. And if you're just like, if you just want to kind of sit back and play a really chill MMO that has some potential to do like high-end content towards the end, I think you're also gonna really love this game. So, I hope that gave some people some insight into Final Fantasy as a whole. And if you're having trouble buying the game, I mean, you can Google it. It is a pain in the ass, I'm sorry, but trust me, it's worth it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have anything you disagree with me about or just want to be nice, leave a comment. I appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.